us that. You got us that, boys. You boys did it again. Great job. Another one that burnout. Burn that down.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Historic Hot Laps. I'm your host, Alex Daniels. This will be a shorter episode today, most likely. We didn't have a whole lot going on. A lot of our dirt stuff got postponed and all that, or canceled. Japan Grand Prix, Darlington, little history lesson at the end. But yeah, let's dive into it with a little race recap. Kicking it off today with Formula 1 Japan Grand Prix. Obviously, that's a legendary track. Kind of a boring track, personal opinion, and I don't think anyone's gonna argue that matter with me on this, but definitely a little bit of a boring race going into it. It's one of those races where, you know, qualifying is basically how everybody's going to finish for the most part. I believe one or two positions changed from qualifying to the top 10 at the end of the race. Not a whole lot, but let's talk about practice real quick because we saw Jack Doohan taking a turn one wide open under DRS, took a hard hit to the wall. Thankfully, he got out under his own power, his own ability. He was pretty shaken up, but that was a rough hit. Probably something that he hopefully won't have to experience again in his career. But yeah, it was definitely a wild ride for him on that one. Going into qualifying, everyone thought, you know, McLaren was going to have it, but Max just outdrove him basically. Max Verstappen, perfect sectors 1, 2, and 3, sets a new record on his flyer lap in qualifying, last lap of the day for him, and he breaks the records, fastest lap in history on that track, I believe. So shadowing any doubt that Red Bull's car development's kind of in jeopardy, which honestly, it'd be interesting to see if you put him in McLaren, what it would end up being, because we know that Red Bull is still a little bit behind, but Max Verstappen, I mean, is there anybody better? That's hard, you know what I mean? It's hard to say, but yeah, he got it done, new record during that lap, so congrats to him on that. And then, like I said, the race is just, it's cool. It's a cool track. The crowd's great. You know, the hosting is great. Everything's great about the event, but the race action itself, it's just not a great product. Kind of a single lane kind of deal on that track. Max on the pole, that's kind of how it's going to be once you get past turn one, the race is over type deal. He dominated the whole thing, picks up the win. McLaren rounds off the podium with Norris in second and Piastri in third. And that's pretty much it for the Formula 1 weekend. Not a whole lot of excitement. We saw Hajar make some good improvements. He's really coming around. I believe the last two races he's got a top 10 in, so aside from that opener when he had all those problems and didn't qualify and everything else, he's doing pretty well. So good to see that from that team. But yeah, everybody else was kind of just toting along in the parade. So pretty standard Japanese Grand Prix. Moving over to NASCAR at Darlington, doubleheader weekend with Xfinity and Cup. So kicking it off with Xfinity, stage one, Harrison Burton. He took two tires towards the end during a caution, and he was just flying around everybody, making up ground. He looked really good. He had a pretty good car through the whole race, but stage one with that strategy call helped him get that stage one win. So more points for him. I believe that's his second stage of the season. I follow so much racing, it's hard to keep track anymore, but I believe he's got, you know, a few stage points going into it right now. So that's good for him and that team over there at AM Racing. Stage two, Little Gator, Justin Allgaier, gaining more and more points, looking to the repeat of last year for a championship, but he stayed comfortably in control of that one, got the stage two win. And the overall race win goes to Brandon Jones. First race win in quite a while, 98 races, I believe, is what the broadcast was saying and the stats were saying, but long time since we've seen him holding up that checkered flag, so congrats to him and that team. Honestly, for being Darlington, it was a pretty calm race. Clearly, after the mess of Martinsville last week and all the chaos that NASCAR had to lay down the law and during their drivers' meeting, everyone kind of played nice, and really wasn't a bad race, but it wasn't super exciting and definitely didn't have all the drama that the Martinsville races had. That brings us over to Cup Series, throwback weekend at Darlington. Always kind of exciting on some parts, some don't participate. There's a huge debate on if it's even worth doing the throwback weekend anymore, you know, that kind of thing. But going into it, as far as the throwbacks go, Larson got the vote for the best throwback. He had that Hendrick Cars number 5 Chevrolet looking like the old Tony the Tiger Frosted Flakes car from the past. Pretty cool that, you know, he has a main sponsor he can do that with and change font. Nobody cares because obviously it's Rick Hendrick's team. So he gets the win for the best looking car, but he didn't keep it nice very long. He got loose coming around. Right, it was actually right before the bump, which I believe is turn 2, maybe? I can't remember. But he got loose, lap 4, brings out the first caution of the day, smashes the hell out of his car. William Byron, who's his teammate, running really, really well, just ran away with the lead, and he took the stage 1 win while Larson was in the garage getting his car repaired. Multiple restarts and everything kept the field behind him, but he Yeah, William Byron just dominated. It looked like he was going to win the race, which, spoiler alert, he doesn't. But stage 2 also went to William Byron. He dominated the majority of the race, like we just said. He could pull a perfect race. Everybody was talking about it. But then there was a couple more strategy calls and cautions, and he was still up front looking pretty good for a bit, but track position was kind of everything in this race. And then oddly enough, Kyle Larson comes out after 160 laps down or whatever. Towards the end of the race there, it's looking like it was going to be a good day for everybody, and then Larson loses it almost in the exact same manner and brings out another caution at the end, but it was before the white flag, so we ended up with a green-white checker situation. Obviously, everybody on the lead lap pitting for tires and everything else, knowing what's going to happen. And that number 11 team over there at Joe Gibbs Racing got Denny out in sub 9 seconds, I believe it was, right at 9 seconds, and gains tons of points, starts out in the front at the restart, holds everybody off. And that number 11 and their 11 versus the world flag get to hold on again and get a back-to-back win. So congrats to Denny and the team over there. Like I said, it was make or break on pit road, and arguably, like, Blaney had probably one of the best cars out there, but his pits were just terrible. His stops were awful. They just weren't in a good groove. I was thinking it was going to be his day, but we keep thinking it's going to be his day, and it just isn't. But Denny gets back-to-back wins. That makes 2 drivers with back-to-back wins this year with JGR, since Christopher Bell started off with 3 in a row. And going into Bristol this weekend, we could see Denny do it again and also get a 3 in a row. So it's hard to say what's going to happen, but this does put Denny past Rusty Wallace in the all-time wins list. So everybody was questioning whether he was getting too old, and I think back-to-back wins shows he's still got it figured out. So yeah, congrats to them in that. Moving over to the dirt world, like I said, high-limit sprints were scheduled for this weekend, but they were canceled due to weather. Dodge City Raceway and Route 66 Raceway, but the weather forecast showing midweek storms and everything else. It's kind of rough on the area. Snow, all kinds of stuff going on there. So that being said, that pretty much wraps up where we're at. There was some other, regional events, but we can't cover it all, right? So that was the main stuff there. We've got Bristol this weekend. IndyCar's back at Long Beach. That's the one I'm hyped for this weekend because that's, aside from the 500, that's the best race of the year. So that's definitely number 2 in the all-time best races. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen with that. Right, kicking over to our news portion. Not much to talk about, honestly. The only big thing is released McLaren this morning, actually as we record this, officially announced its intention to join the Hyperclass of the FIA World Endurance Championship. This is looking like a 2027 effort. Give them some time in development over the next season and a half. But McLaren just trying to spread their reach even more and try to cover literally every aspect of racing. So that's pretty awesome. Another great move by Zach Brown in charge of that over there. And just, yeah, cool to see is all I can say. Last little thing, I just threw this in here. We had a poll going, nice Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it, asking who was in the wrong during the Xfinity race at Martinsville. And we had 3 choices in our poll. We had Sammy Smith, Taylor Gray, or Racing's Racing, which means, it's just a racing incident, which is rough, but just part of racing at Martinsville is basically how we were going with that. So results are in. We had an even split amongst the fans, and also participation was awesome, so thank you all for that. 50% cited that racing is racing and it's just part of it. The other 50 saw that Sammy Smith was in the wrong. I didn't vote for it, obviously being the one hosting the poll, but as a tiebreaker, I will say it's definitely Sammy Smith's fault coming from 4 cars back at Martinsville to trash Taylor Gray. And it's funny that 0 people thought Taylor Gray was in the wrong, which, when you're leading the race and you get wrecked out, that's kind of how that works. So it is what it is there, but yeah, coming from multiple car lengths back to punt the guy leading the race is not a good look. That's my opinion. Take it or leave it. But I do appreciate the feedback on the poll, and we're definitely going to do more of these through the season. So I don't want to steal the thunder of other podcasts that have been doing this way longer than me on, a weekly poll that they do and stuff like that, because I participate in a lot of those. But we will cover other big events on polls, so look out for those on the X and Twitter, and maybe we'll post them up on the YouTube. Appreciate the feedback.
The only thing that might prevent it, Stan, in my opinion, would be a wet track or a series of accidents, which might make it necessary for race officials to display the yellow caution flag for more than a few minutes. If we're not forced to run at reduced speed for either of those reasons, I know that anyone who beats me across the finish line this year will have to average more than 120 miles an hour, unless I have mechanical trouble.
Right, this takes us to the history of this podcast episode here, episode 37. Let's talk about Ted Horn. Theodore Horn, born in Cincinnati, Ohio. Horn's family moved several times during his childhood, finally ending in the Los Angeles area. Found work as a newspaper, kind of just runner at the age of 15, trying to work his way into journalism at the Los Angeles Times. On his way to work one day, as the story has it, and by the way, I'd like to cite my source on this. This is a story out of Wikipedia, so we'll see how accurate it is, but everything on the internet's true. But on his way to work one day, Horn was pulled over for speeding. Try as he might, he could not get out of the situation easily. The policeman gave him a fairly unusual punishment for the infraction. The young man was to travel to a racetrack called San Jose Speedway, where usually there are more cars than drivers, then find a willing car owner to let him drive. Once he got all the speed out he had in his system, he could pick up his impounded car. It's kind of funny that if the cop actually did that, right? Horn would heed the advice of the policeman. And would eventually return to pick up his car, but he found a new passion in auto racing and would never get the speed he had out of his system, as he's like to say it. So a need for speed, if you will. He began his racing career at that California racetrack called Legion Ascot Speedway. He had much to learn, obviously, being a little older coming into the scene, as a lot of them came in a little younger as kids. He's usually the slowest driver on the track. Eventually, other drivers coached him and showed him how to pick up lap times and everything else. He did suffer a pretty bad accident, which broke his foot, gave him burns up his back, and kept him out for several weeks. His parents asked that he abandon racing, but he just couldn't stay away. Stayed away for 3 years and got back into it. He kept improving his skill. He was just kind of that fight, never give up kind of spirit. He finished close second he finished a local race in second place right behind Louis Meyer, who was an Indy 500 winner at the time. Meyer was impressed with him, and he needed to travel to the Midwest and Eastern regions to get more experience and get in faster cars on faster tracks. So that's what kind of led him into his champ car stuff. So let's talk about his champ car career. 1934, in preparation for the Indianapolis 500, Horn practiced in a car called the Mix Special. He did not feel comfortable with the car, decided against trying to qualify it. Throughout the summer, he campaigned a sprint car tour, which was a pretty rigorous schedule, as it still is, in the East and the Midwest. He was successful enough to attract the attention of Harry Miller. With an effort between Harry Miller and Preston Trucker and the Ford Motor Company, the 1935 Indianapolis 500 gave him a ride. When asked by Miller, Horn accepted the ride in the Miller Ford V8. He made the field in the 1935 Indianapolis 500 in that, but a flaw in the design would eventually cause the steering gear in the car to lock up, being impossible to steer. He made it 145 laps and dropped out. Spent most of the day fighting the steering issues on that. So a lot of trial and error back in the day, right? Everybody was doing their own thing, making their own cars and all of that. So after his first Indy 500, Horn felt that he failed to make an impression. Former driver turned car owner Harry Hartz felt otherwise about the young driver and thought that he did an excellent job of driving under difficult circumstances. Hartz was impressed about his spirit and his fight that he had in him. Offered him a chance to drive in the 1936 Indy 500, one of his cars. Hartz was a consistent finisher in driving in the 500 prior and took Horn under his wing. The combination of the two was a potent one, as it's listed here in this biography. He would finish second on his first race with Hartz. He made two more Indianapolis 500 in the Hartz machine and finished third and fourth. So all top five finishes in that program. Horn continued to race moderate success through the 30s. Second, third, fourth place finishes, a lot of top fives. Placing well in the championship standings. He volunteered for the World War II service, but was rejected on the basis of his racing injuries. Remember, he had that foot injury and everything else. Racing began again on a limited basis after the war. We've covered that a lot in the war efforts and how things changed. Horn won all 7 races he entered in 1945 when racing began again. Just came out off the trailer, as they say, just with a fight, and won all these races. Further success came his way in the years following, giving him the national championship in 1946, 1947, and 1948. This was the first 3-time winner in history. He never won the Indianapolis 500, although he did have a couple podiums, but he did achieve 9 straight top 4 finishes there, and he also started on the pole in 1947. So a lot of success. So unfortunately, the next part we will talk about is how he passed away. 1948 AAA Championship car season, the season finale. Horn had already clinched the championship that year. They're in DuQuoin, Illinois, October 10th, 1948. He was in a serious accident during a second lap. He was taken to the hospital, but passed away there at the age of 38. So passing away from his injuries. There is now a AAA Champ Car race. Also, the USAC Silver Crown is how it's known now. We've talked about Silver Crowns a lot in the past, and they have a race every year known as the Ted Horn 100, which is, in dedication to his memory and all his success. So talking about his honors, Ted was entered into the Auto Racing Hall of Fame in 1964, the Eastern Motorsports Press Association Hall of Fame in 1987, the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame in 1991, and the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America in 1993. He's the holder of the Midwest Big Car, which is the equivalent to sprint cars now, AAA Midwest Big Car champion in 1938-1939, Champ Car in 46, 47, and 48 that we had already listed, and Eastern Big Car, so Eastern Sprint Champion in 1947 and 1948. So dual championship of seasons in two different divisions in 47 and 48. Makes you wonder what he could have accomplished had he not sadly passed away. Did he have an Indy 500 in him? Could something else have happened? It's hard to say, but over his Champ Car career, he ran 72 races over 11 years, 24 wins, 49 podiums, and 7 pole position awards. So quite the history on that. And I'd like to also quote the IMS Museum, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, on what they had to say about Ted Horn on their site. Ted Horn won important races on almost every track in operation during his career except at Indianapolis. However, his Indianapolis 500 record is unequaled for consistency. He finished 4th or better in 9 straight races beginning in 1936, placing 2nd once, 3rd 4 times, and 4th 4 times. He also was a pole position winner in 1947 and led the race in 3 different years for a total of 94 laps. He had virtually no equal on half-mile dirt tracks, winning more than 80 American Automobile Association sprint car races from 1936 to 1948, including 23 in 1948 alone. He also won the Central States Racing Association title for sprint cars in 1941 and 1945. He won 5 American Automobile Association National Championship races on 1-mile dirt tracks in 1947 and 1948, and through a number of consistent finishes, scored enough points to win the American Automobile Association National Championship in 1946, 1947, and 1948. He had already won the title for the 3rd consecutive year when he lost his life in an accident in the final race of the year at DuQuoin, Illinois on October 10th, 1948. And that wraps that up. Awesome Ted Horn information. Somebody who really was probably on their way for a win, honestly. I don't know that we would, had he had a little more time here on Earth, if he would have been unstoppable. Maybe 1949 might have been his year. It's hard to say, but either way, glad he was part of motorsports when he was, and everything he did, we thank him for. So that concludes today's episode. Please, as always, like, share, subscribe, follow, do all the stuff, all the platforms. We got a little problem with our TikTok right now, so we'll see if we get back on there. We had a short run, but TikTok's a finicky animal, so we'll see what comes up of that. But as always, appreciate the listens, and plenty more to come this year. Working on some more stuff. Hoping to have enough stuff. We see everybody around Indy, give a wave during qualification week, whatever it may be. We'll be there. Hopefully talk to some people out there and about their experiences and everything else, and, give them some swag of some sort. So that's about it. And as always, stay safe, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us at Historic Hot Laps on X and all your other social platforms for the latest updates and sneak peeks into upcoming episodes. You can reach out to us directly at historichotlaps@gmail.com. Send us your feedback, questions, comments, opinions, and additional subject matter you'd like us to cover. Thanks for tuning in.